Today, we're diving into something truly groundbreaking, a brand new, publicly available dataset that's poised to become a powerful new weapon in the fight against head and neck cancer. This is a story about how big data is fueling AI breakthroughs that could literally change how we diagnose, treat, and predict outcomes for this incredibly complex disease.
So let's get right to the heart of it. The big question is this: can big data, when it's shared openly and collaboratively, actually solve one of medicine's most difficult puzzles? The potential for this has been talked about for years, but there's always been a critical piece missing from the equation. Let's explore how that is all about to change.
Okay, first things first. Before we can really appreciate the solution, we have to understand the problem. So let's talk about why head and neck cancer is such a uniquely difficult challenge to begin with. Head and neck cancer isn't just one single thing. It's actually a whole group of cancers that show up in some of the most intricate and vital real estate in the human body. We're talking about the areas you need for breathing, for swallowing, for speaking. The location alone makes everything from diagnosis to treatment exceptionally tricky.
And the hurdles here are just massive. It's not just the complex anatomy. For advanced cases, their survival rates are stubbornly, frustratingly low. And a huge part of that problem is that our current methods for predicting a patient's outcome, what we call their prognosis, well, they just aren't accurate enough. There's a desperate need for better tools to help doctors make better predictions.
And this, of course, is where artificial intelligence is supposed to enter the picture. AI holds so much promise for cancer treatment, but it's been consistently held back by one single major roadblock. The whole promise of AI here is its incredible ability to see patterns that we humans might miss. It can take in these huge different streams of information, things like PET scans, CT scans, electronic health records, even radiotherapy plans, and weave them all together to build a much more complete picture of a patient's cancer. And that leads to way more accurate predictions.
But here's the catch. Here is the bottleneck. For an AI to learn, it needs data. And not just any data. It needs a lot of high-quality, diverse data. In the world of medical research, big public data sets for head and neck cancer have been almost impossible to find. Most studies have had to use small private data sets from just one hospital, which means the AI models they build are biased and often don't work anywhere else.
And this is where our story really takes a turn. This brings us to the solution, a new resource designed to completely smash that bottleneck wide open. Researchers have just released a massive new dataset, and it's called HECKTOR.
So let's start with the sheer scale of it. This new dataset contains incredibly detailed information from 1,123 patients. Now, that number might not sound huge at first, but in this field of research, that is absolutely massive. It makes it one of the largest, most powerful resources of its kind, period. But it's not just about the size, it's also about the diversity. The data wasn't sourced from just one place. It comes from 10 different international medical centers, from the US to France to Canada. And this is so important, because it means any AI model trained on this data will be tough enough, robust enough to work across all kinds of different patient groups and hospital settings. And the third magic ingredient is that the dataset is what we call multimodal. The easiest way to think about this is like a detective solving a really complex case, right? You wouldn't just rely on photos. You'd want the forensic reports, the witness statements, the background checks. Multimodal data does exactly the same thing for cancer, combining all these different info types for a much clearer picture. So what exactly is inside this treasure chest? Well, you've got the core PET and CT scans. Then you have something priceless, expert annotations, where radiologists have painstakingly drawn outlines around the tumors, basically telling the AI, look here, this is the important part. There's even radiotherapy dose info, and it's all linked to rich clinical data, demographics, HPV status, and maybe most importantly, the long-term survival outcomes for these patients. But here's the really cool part. The researchers didn't just build this incredible resource and then walk away. No way. They immediately put it to the test. To prove its value, they benchmarked the data against 3 critical real-world tasks that AI could help solve in the clinic right now. And these 3 tasks represent huge challenges in cancer care. So first, could an AI learn to automatically find and outline tumors on scans with real precision? Second, could it predict what's going to happen to a patient, like whether their cancer is likely to come back? And third, could it identify a key biological marker, HPV status, just by looking at the data? All right, so for task 1, outlining the tumors, the results were pretty impressive. They tested a few different AI models, and one called SegResNet came out on top. It achieved what's called a DICE score, which is just a grade on how well the AI's outline matched the human experts, of over 0.66. This is solid proof that the dataset is high quality enough to train an AI to do this really complex visual job.
Now, for task 2, predicting the future. And here, the key finding was crystal clear. Remember that detective analogy? Well, it paid off big time. Combining the scans with the clinical data from patient records gave the AI a much clearer picture. This multimodal approach made the models way better at predicting if a patient's cancer would return. It's simple. More types of data lead to smarter predictions.
And for the third task, well, this one is pretty mind-blowing. An AI model that combined image features with clinical data was able to predict a patient's HPV status, a critical biomarker that guides treatment, with over 93% accuracy. Think about that. Normally, you need a specific, sometimes invasive test for this. Here, the AI is learning to see molecular-level information right in the standard clinical data. It's incredible. So, what does this all add up to? What does this mean for the future of fighting cancer? This is where this scientific breakthrough starts to translate into real-world impact for patients, for doctors, and for the entire life sciences industry. You don't even have to take my word for it. The authors who created this dataset, they said it perfectly. They called it an unprecedented resource. It's not just a study, it's a foundation, a launchpad that countless other researchers all over the world can now use to build the next wave of innovations.
And for any leaders in the life sciences space, the takeaways here are huge and they are actionable. This dataset gives you a public benchmark to accelerate and test your own AI tools. It allows you to build better prognostic models, which can help de-risk clinical trials by choosing the right patients. It even lets you validate your own proprietary AI against a tough public standard to gain a competitive edge. And ultimately, it opens the door to discovering new imaging biomarkers that could guide the future of drug discovery.
So if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. The HECKTOR dataset is so much more than just a folder of files. It is an open-source launchpad. It's a powerful, collaborative tool that was designed from the ground up to fuel the kind of innovation that could fundamentally change how we fight head and neck cancer.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. This whole project is such a powerful example of what is possible. It really makes you wonder, what happens when this kind of open, collaborative science isn't the exception but becomes the norm? What other medical breakthroughs are just sitting there, waiting to be unlocked if we just decide to power them with open data?